And just like that, we're live once again. How's it going, guys? Welcome to another installment of RCS Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're breaking down one of our products, talking about tips and tricks, and get to go and talk to the RCS experts like you see over here. Getting in frame there. I'm joined today by Brian and Adrian. Brian is our FTS install lead. FTS. What's the official title, Brian? Help me out here.
I'm the Field Technical Services Manager, so basically head of installation.
I always butcher that every single time. It's what you don't do.
Yes.
And Adrian is now our official GSelector Support Lead, right?
The scheduling support manager.
Scheduling support. They're important distinction there. And so both these guys are here today to talk about the onboarding process. That's right, how we take you from the sales aspect, you've purchased the product, to the implementation of it, and getting you up and running as well. Of course, we got some housekeeping to talk about first. Let's see here, talking about our backups and data exchanges. Don't forget to take up those backups and those data exchanges. Make sure the file paths are working, making sure you're doing those daily data exchanges as well. Always looking for beta users. So we have Zeta 5.21.2 coming on the pipeline very, very shortly. We also have GSelector 5.0. I think that's about both of those about a week or so away, maybe a little bit more. And then we also have Acquira 3.21.2 for beta users as well. A lot of good stuff there. And of course, if you have any questions or past videos, we do have a link for you, rcsworks.com/rcs-live. That is going to give you a full archive of all of our past videos, including write-ups and all of that good stuff. And of course, if you are online, hey, just like Ted's over here. Ted's asking, how do I get certified for RCS? Great question, Ted. We have our chat open here for YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Ted's, go to rcsworks.com in the Academy. We have both GSelector and Zeta certification. All the details are there. If you want more information, just shoot me an email at mumford@rcsworks.com or academy@rcsworks.com. We'll put you in touch with the right people there, Ted, just so you know. Finally, we are so excited. I think it's next week. We're busy working right now. NAB, that's right. 2022 will be there live. That's our booth W6422 in the West Hall, which is brand new this year. We're really, really excited to be back, see you in person. We got a lot of meetings as well with some of you. So if you're curious about seeing the latest and greatest RCS products and features, we'll be there. I myself will be there talking up a storm for the entire week. So please stop on by. If you want to set some time either remotely as well, you can always reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you out there. So without further ado, let's dive right into the good stuff, and that is the RCS onboarding process. So what is onboarding? Onboarding is the idea that we're going to go and have somebody like Brian and Adrian or one of our team members guide you from start to finish in the process, right? We don't want to just throw you these pieces of software and say, here you go, learn it yourself. That's not what we do here. We want to try to encourage best practices and answer your questions. And Brian is on the automation side, Adrian's on the scheduling side, and both of those have their own unique, kind of workflows, I guess you can say. So let's start with Brian on the Zeta side, the automation side, and talk a little bit about the process, Brian, and talk about that training with your staff and any potential new clients.
Well, as you can see, Nate, I'm actually on site this week, as you see the rack room, so it's perfect.
Yes, thank you for making the time.
Yes, no, and again, it's perfect for this meeting because it shows that yes, I'm not only the manager of a team of about 5 to 6 now that we travel around and install the system. So, but right now at this point, this is the final step in the onboarding process. Us actually getting on site and putting it to air. It starts much earlier. And we say that a lot. And that's one of the reasons I think that both Adrian and I will reiterate is that we want to start the process of getting you on board with Zeta, any of our products, from the day one that you see a Nate demo and you start talking about the sales process. We want to be involved because the more information that we can gather from you and the more information you can gather from us will help the process all the way through. So that's why it's getting you on board. That's the kind of the slick word about it, but it's like it's a lot of back and forth information gathering, and you just don't buy it and you don't wait 6 weeks, whenever we come out, or 2 months or 3 weeks, we'll talk to you the whole way. And it's very important for you to ask us questions along, and to be in communication and to prepare yourself and your staff. I always say this, we're not coming here to dictate, to do it all for you. It's really much more of a partnership. And I like the feeling that I'm sitting here in the rack room with a key for this room, and that is they invited me here. When I'm here, and when my team's here, we're part of the staff. We're part of the team, and that's the commitment that we at RCS take a lot. I know especially Adrian, all his team, my team. We're here. We're going to get in and with you, and that's one of the things I really want to reiterate about the process. Is it is a team. It's a partnership, and so we're going to need a lot from you, and we expect that you're going to need a lot for us. But the customer is going to make the onboarding process successful or not. All we can do is, help guide, but it's really up to you to utilize, to maximize what we can give you. We're experts on our software, and we're all radio people too. That's the part we know. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to partner with you and implement our products into your environment with our knowledge. And we learn just as much from our customers, as we do. That's why I still like getting out here in the field and out of the ivory tower, as one of somebody said here, from my ivory desk of managing, to actually be and to learn from the customers, and because that will help us for the next stuff. So it's a great partnership, and I just reiterate, ask us questions along the way. Ask Nate. Nate's a big part of this. Ask your sales rep. If they don't know, they'll get in touch with me. They'll get in touch with Adrian, and just continue to have a dialogue, and don't be fearful, scared to ask questions. And to, I always say, email me anything. I want to know. I want to know the smallest detail of what your operation is.
And I want to harp on that too, because, that's one of the big things that we're seeing too is, obviously we work with thousands of clients with different formats and different needs and different hardware and all of that stuff, right? And I say this not to, it's we don't know what you're doing because we've done so many different things, right? So if there's a certain news talk format or a certain, it's Kai's checked in now. Sorry, I'm looking at my chat. Just go there. Hi, Kai. How's it going? Thanks for checking in. We do have our chat open. If you have questions for Brian or Adrian or myself. But the beauty is that we don't know your setup, right? We don't know what you're doing. So there are things that are important to you. And it's not that we don't want to know that. It's the opposite. We do want to know that. And so I always say, like, Brian's team is like I always call them the Navy SEALs of RCS, because they come in with precision. They get the job done, and they're an amazing team. They know so many little nuances of our software. But if you don't tell them you need something, they're not going to tell you, hey, there's a really cool setting inside of Zeta. You can enable this, this, and this, and get that behavior, right? And so, as Brian said, communication is so key into this partnership, because we want to make sure that we get you up and running. Yes, but we also want to make sure we introduce some of these new modern concepts with this radio automation software. So, pivoting a little bit to the music scheduling side with Adrian. Now, for that communication, a lot of times for us, it's about installs for the GSelector server, which is typically on Zeta, if not another machine, and the conversion process as well. You want to talk a little about that and where kind of your introduction for the onboarding process is, Adrian?
Yeah, Nate. So it's like like Brian said, it's key that we work together to get this process not only going, but also to make it as smooth as possible for both teams, right? So sometimes we're not only working or focusing on one station, but there's situations where each onboarding is different, right? It's like Brian gets there, he's on site, but he doesn't know what he's going to get until obviously he gets all the information. But each site is different, each station is different, formats are different. Obviously, when it comes to scheduling formats, you may have your own way of scheduling things. So we want to make that transition from any system that you're using. That could be software, or it could be manual way of using of scheduling songs or rotating songs. We want to make it as smooth as possible of a transition to GSelector. So yeah, typically all starts way at the beginning. As soon as you're in the middle of finishing that deal, you hear from us. We basically send you a package explaining all the details, from top to bottom, how the process is going to go, starting from the things that you have to keep in mind. We have sort of like a checklist, so to speak, where you have to check and make sure that every song you have has a valid category. If you have a software and scheduling system, those have valid categories. Make sure they're there. We're going to talk about a little bit about IDs, how the songs or imaging is identified a little bit later, and how those can play a role when it comes to merging. Not merging, but marrying, GSelector and Zeta when it comes to that initial handshake that has to occur, so then both can talk fluently between each other. So that's part of that initial process. There are obviously some questions like, how are we going to get our configuration going? What happens to our clocks? What happens to our history? All of that, it's part of the onboarding process, and obviously we go through it with everyone pretty much individually. So it's not like a group per se, where we say, okay, here's your instructions, go on your way. This is not how that works. We work with every onboarding, every client individually, to make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah. By the way, Lewis said hi, by the way, Adrian.
Hey.
I don't know if you caught that on screen or not. And Kai, thanks for the kind words about UK. I love those guys are there, amazing too as well. Gotta give them some props. Let's see for 1 second. So obviously the hardware aspect, for Brian's perspective, typically when we're doing automation upgrades, usually that includes new hardware as well. On the scheduling side, we usually kind of piggyback a lot of that hardware. Adrian, any comments you want to mention that, things that you're looking for as the lead for installation of GSelector? Because I know a lot of users always ask, there's so many variables with the GSelector process in regards to how big your database is, how many stations, how many songs. But you want to comment a little bit on the hardware aspect. If I'm a new user for GSelector, where do you recommend for the server to go? Any kind of Adrianisms there? And hi, Meg.
Yeah, thank you. So typically, like you said, if we are in a situation where you have Zeta and GSelector getting installed at your site, usually the way how we do it is, yes, we install the GSelector services where Zeta is installed. So basically that becomes the server. Unless you have a situation where you have two servers. For instance, you could have, depending on the size, you could have an SQL server basically handling all the databases, and GSelector can have its own database sitting there along with Zeta, and then we can have other services sitting in another machine, as well as GSelector. GSelector can have its own services sitting in a different computer, a different server, so to speak. So basically, there are multiple ways. It really depends on how many, the size of the database is important. How many stations, how many users are you expecting to have connected at the same time, all scheduling at the same time? Are you going to have any sort of external communication talking to GSelector? Well, all of those variables play a role when it comes to designing the type of configuration that you're going to have. You can have two machines, you can have one machine, or you can have three machines sitting as servers for GSelector, for instance. So it's or many more, really.
Yeah.
So it's
you get the whole VM world too, and all of a sudden you get the whole VM aspect too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
But the key thing here is that Adrian and Brian have done it. They've seen it, and if they haven't, which is pretty rare, they'll make it work. Right, Brian?
Yes, Nate steals my line. Yes, and just to piggyback on that, Nate mentioned it, and Adrian, it's our products are very flexible, and we pride ourselves on staying as up to date with our products for modern hardware, software, and you mentioned virtualization and that kind of thing. And so we work within the latest, OS, SQL versions, all that. We're always trying to keep up to speed with the latest technology that for this process. So and we have to interface with many different other vendors in the plant as well. And so we're always making sure that our products are modern along with all the other vendors that are creating stuff. Because again, it's not just It's just in a GSelector Zeta world, but yeah, we have to get out to your RDS. We have to get out to your streaming services. We have to do all those kind of things now, and those are continuing to be more modern. And just on the hardware aspect of it, the biggest things I think, and this is across any infrastructure in any business at this point, network reliability and security are two of the biggest things right now that everybody has to deal with, and that's just as important for us. So when you're talking about pre-planning for onboarding for any of our products, GSelector, Zeta, Acquira, RCS Cloud, thinking about how your network is in place at this moment and the security around that is probably first and foremost in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should always note, I've been kind of hinting this throughout these RCS lives, but in case you missed it, we had a whole big thing on cybersecurity here at an RCS live. Yes, it's been a very active, development in the forefront for us for about a year or so now, because obviously you want here at RCS, one of the things I always say is, as a worldwide leader in radio software, you want to be ahead of the curve. You don't want to be behind it. And so about a year and so ago, right at the beginning of COVID, I think we did a lot of new cybersecurity countermeasures. And of course, I always joke and say, I'm not going to tell you what those are, because if I did, then you would know what those security measures are. So I just say there's a whole bunch in there, many even I don't know, that are in place to make sure that we keep our software both secure but ever evolving as well. And even there you go. Here you go. The Matt's even checking in, reminding everybody, but have you checked your backups recently? Thank you, Matt. That's a good top of the hour. I always say it. So I do know I have some documentation here if you guys want to touch very briefly on. Adrian, do you want to show your conversion thing first?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know we had a couple things prepared for this, and I'm kind of moving quickly over here just for time purposes. So if you do have any questions over here, definitely make sure you ask Brian, Adrian, or myself right now, because I know we're on a slight delay for the stream. So you want to kind of elaborate on some of the conversion stuff a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously multiple types of conversions that we do every week here at RCS, but thinking about moving into an environment where you're going to have GSelector and Zeta, we want to bring up the differences, the different scenarios that we can expect, and what the result of that could be. So again, we work with everyone to ensure that this basically has a successful resolve. But the screenshot you're showing in there is essentially an example of two stations. You have station A with, let's just say, a sweeper A, and that contains an ID 1001, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look into station B, that's a separate database, and that contains a promo for a morning show with the same ID number. So what's going to happen is we're talking about integration, right? When we're about to integrate GSelector and Zeta, we need to ensure that it's completely free of duplicates. And by duplicates, we mean IDs, right? The ID is essentially how we're going to match them initially, at the very least. So basically, once you get to the point where these two are combined, we need to make sure that you understand what that's going to look like once it's combined. So before you get to the next page there, hold on. The station A, once it gets combined, here's what's going to happen. So the first one is it's going to get there, but then the second asset we call a link or a song, we call them assets. So the second asset is going to get there, but it's going to get matched based on the media ID. So if you see these two, they're now sharing the same ID, but the same asset is essentially a sweeper A, right? So what happened to the promo morning show? That is no longer there because that was matched based on the ID. So we want to make sure that before you send your databases for a conversion, we want to make sure that those are unique, right? That you do have a unique ID, because ultimately, when you get to the point where you're going to have Zeta installed, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to need to do something about that ID that is not unique, right? So if you scroll to the second page there.
There you go. Thank you. I should switch my monitor.
So yeah, that second one is essentially a different scenario. So we have, again, station A, station B. We have the same song. So this is what happens. So if you have two different stations, two separate databases, and they happen to have the same exact song, same ID, they're not going to get duplicated when we combine them into one. Because remember, GSelector, we call it once you have GSelector, we call that database an enterprise database. All your stations are there, same as Zeta, or you have all your stations inside. So when these two songs from two different databases, same song, same ID, are combined, you're going to get a shared song with the same ID and the same name. So this is essentially what we're expecting to have. The third one, there you go. So this one is a particular case. So I don't know if we can see the bottom part of that, but
yeah, I'll zoom out here.
Yeah. So the third one right there, we have a situation where we have two stations, station A, station B, but then we have something that makes the songs unique. And that could be a unique scenario for your site. Sometimes stations have unique songs by categories. So technically the ID could be the same, but they are in different folders, different categories. So these will need to be combined for us to be able to identify that uniqueness, right, between the two. So looking back at the two examples there at the bottom, we can see that song A is different from song B because we combine the media code there, the media category, into the media ID. So basically, we create that unique, with that uniqueness between the two. That's essentially what happens when you have your enterprise, combined with multiple stations. So I'm sure Brian is going to be adding some notes about that as well.
Yeah. So let's dive into the let's see here. I'm gonna try going this monitor here. I switch my monitors over. Boom, this guy here. So just brief for time purposes, Brian, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about from your perspective with Zeta, things that you hand out, helpful guides, again, talk about the process leading into you being on site. Communication is key here. You want to elaborate a little bit about kind of this document you send out to users?
Yeah, it's our new intro, and there's actually a section in there about the numbers, exactly what Adrian was talking about. It's still down, but yeah, I mean, you can scroll. It's got a lot of stuff in it that's going to talk about the different things, of course, like network topology and that. So this is just more of an example of what you're going to get from us at the start. And I know it's long and there's a lot of stuff, but it just kind of tells you how much information and how big a project it can be, because sometimes you don't realize all the little different areas that you may be dealing with when you're making an automation, music scheduling change, or traffic scheduling change, or all of our products. So that's why we kind of provide this up front, and this is something that you will get right at the start to help plan and prepare, and it's more of that sort of intro. So the big thing is to make sure that if you don't get this, contact me, contact somebody, because we have a lot of times, where there's moving pieces. Sometimes the general manager is the one who signs the deal. And so they're the immediate contact and they get this information, but don't necessarily populate it to the engineer or to the programming team. So that's the key thing. We don't always know who those right people are. So if you know that this change is coming, please reach out. Your sales representative, Nate, myself, that kind of thing, because we want you to have this information, because it will only help us do our job. And our ultimate goal, of course, is to successfully onboard you and to make the process. And we do. I mentioned it early at the start. We are part of the team here. We take it when we're on site and even after, we take very much pride in the sound of your radio stations, almost like they're our own. That's how we are. We want you to be successful. We don't want to just hurry up, do our part, leave, and leave you in some sort of chaos or not 100% perfect. And if we do leave and there's things, we'll follow up all the time.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest aspects. We've talked about the onboarding. The onboarding doesn't stop when I leave here on Friday. It's going to continue, and it's going to continue through my team, through Adrian's team, and then eventually, we'll migrate you to our wonderful support team. So it's a long-term relationship with RCS. You'll start with us, and again, we don't go away because we want you to be successful. We want to be partners. We don't treat it like a client vendor, in business, client scenario. We really do treat you at RCS like we're a team and a partnership.
Absolutely. Well said. Adrian, before we go, anything you want to mention on your end? Any kind of things you want to bring up?
Oh, well, just, to ensure, obviously, like Brian said, yes, once all the trainings are completed, which is usually done within a week, yes, we continue to hold your hand through the process. We have follow-up sessions with the team, so essentially to ensure that you're prepared to start scheduling. The reality of it is by the end of the week, you should be able to, to send a log out or to schedule music if you're fully integrated with Zeta. But that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And obviously, keep a backup safe. Like everybody's saying there in the chat. So it's just making sure that you have a backup. Yeah. That's number one.
It's huge. Awesome. So, of course, any questions on this onboarding process, reach out to myself, reach out to Brian, Adrian, or the team as well. But again, the big thing here is we want to talk about essentially, helping you, getting you from point A to point B, and that we are here with a team of experts to help you out on there. But communication is key because we want to make sure we address everything that you want to be addressed, right? That's always big there too. So guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Of course, we have a full list of our archive videos in the past over at rcsworks.com/RCS-live. Now we're going to be at NAB next week. So we might be break a week or two there. We'll be back for another installment of RCS Live down the road. Thank you so much. We'll see you again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.